Hello, Wildwood families. I want to take a moment today to talk a little bit about our scenarios for the 2020-2021 school year. I hope you had a great summer, and as unusual and as unpredictable as it has been, I hope you found some time to rest and relax. Today's purpose is not to give any weight to any certain model. We just want to give an overview of all the plans. I want to communicate the safety and health measures that we will take on a daily basis for our students, our staff, and anyone who enters our building. And then at the end, I want to take some time to answer some questions that have come up during our planning process. In order to make our decision for the district, we spent countless hours and lots of time discussing and planning. The planning process components were from 3 learning models: the in-person, the hybrid, and the distance learning. We took guidance from the Minnesota Department of Education and the Minnesota Department of Health, and now Governor Walz's executive orders, county data, and safe learning plan. Our team spent countless hours and read hundreds, literally hundreds of feedback forms from families and from staff. We fully recognize that the decision for families is not an easy one. I, myself, and my family, we also have to make a decision for what's best for our kids and our family. I hope that this presentation will help you, provide you a little information to give you so that you can make that decision for your family. Okay, let's dive into the 2021 learning models that Mahtomedi Public Schools may use during the school year. This will be a brief overview of all 3 of the learning models. However, in the next few weeks, our district will continue to provide additional information and expectations as they are developed. In the next few slides, I will talk about Model 1, which is in person, Model 2, which is hybrid, and Model 3, which is the distance learning, and we're coining it Distance Learning 2.0. Based on our county's COVID-19 matrix, we may experience the 3 learning models during the entire school year. We have built plans for all 3 models that can transition between the 3 and provide continuous learning for families. Just know that families can always request a distance learning plan if they do not wish to participate in the in-person learning at school. Students who need to be quarantined, they can also use a distance learning plan for the duration of their exclusion. Again, we want to make sure that we're offering flexibility so that it is a family choice. Some of our health and safety measures are: all students will be expected to wear masks and face coverings in our buildings during the in-person and while on school transportation. This includes our hybrid model. I fully understand. I've had lots of conversations with teachers about how difficult it may be for kindergartners through 2nd graders to wear masks, and that might be a challenge. We are currently coming up with fun ways to introduce masks, model why it's important, why they need to wear it, and how it protects them. We got a team of teachers and myself, and we're working on that. However, if you wanted to talk to your child about wearing masks now that it's a state mandate and why it's important and keep them safe, that would really help us out. Keeping our buildings clean is a top priority, and we follow all the Minnesota Department of Health cleaning and sanitation protocols daily, and some of our COVID-19 symptoms and screening are: families will conduct daily health checks for COVID-19 at home. Staff will be responsible for their own COVID-19 health checks. Staff will be observed for COVID-19 symptoms at school. Exclusion and notification practices will follow the Minnesota Department of Health guidelines. A lot of parents have asked me, if a child does contract COVID-19, will the school let them know? And the answer is yes, we will. We will also be working with the Minnesota Department of Health team to talk about next steps if we do get a case at our school. Our health offices have a new configuration, and we will have a spot here right over there in the conference room at Wildwood that is designated place where students with symptoms can go safely, be monitored, be removed from that cohort, and picked up by a loved one if needed. Here are other health and safety noteworthy practices. We have new classroom configurations. I'll show you a picture of that. We'll be staying in cohorts. We're going to limit the amount of motion and movement that students have between cohorts. We'll have different entrances and exits for the grade level, so they're not crossing paths. We have plexiglass, both for small group learning and also for our main offices. And we will increase hand washing and sanitation. Health and safety transportation. Under the hybrid model, buses will operate at 50% capacity. Buses will be cleaned before and after every route. All drivers and students will be expected to wear masks, face coverings while on school transportation. And we're hoping to put in some new practices for pickup and drop off, especially at OHA, having more bikers and walkers to establish and accommodate potential increases in self-transportation. Even though we may have to switch models throughout the school year, depending on our COVID-19, we're absolutely dedicated to providing educational excellence through the following bullets. We want 5 days a week of continuous learning. That was something that came through very clearly in our surveys. We want consistent course and content expectations. We want relationships with educators that foster that academic and social emotional growth. We want our students to be engaged. We want to provide feedback. We want to provide structure and supports for both the students and the families so that we can maximize the learning. Transitions and opportunities for academic reflection, and we want agency in their learning. When we talk about distance learning 2.0, we want to look here at some of the ways that it may look different than it did in the spring. We want to ensure that we're continuously learning and that we're learning every day. We want to provide online daily instruction with our teachers based on a regular schedule. We want more face-to-face and recorded lessons to provide flexibility for families that may be on a different schedule. And we want to make sure that our students are building independence, having that time to practice, and that we're allowing and we're giving you feedback on where your child is throughout the year. All right, so if you take a look at these pictures, here's just one classroom example. Our tables are going to be spread out so we can absolutely do social distancing, and see that we only have two chairs per table here in this picture. Here is a music stand right now. This is how we're kind of envisioning that we would tape if we did live lessons. If we chose to do that, we would tape the teacher here. And here's an example of a different entrance and exit. So this is the kindergarten entrance and exits where only kindergarten would go in and only kindergarten would go out. Let's take a look at more in depth at our 3 learning models, starting with in-person model. The in-person learning model will most resemble, again, what a normal school day would look like. However, we would still have to adjust for MDE and MDH requirements. Our school day would start about 7:45 and end at 2:15. We would have 5 days of continuous learning, and all elementary students that choose this model would attend in person Monday through Friday. Some of the things that we would do to make sure that we're following those MDH requirements would be we'd have lunch in the classrooms with our cohorts. Those cohorts would not mix with other cohorts. We would have recess with those same students. We would stay here. They would stay here. Our recess would be sectioned off, and each cohort would kind of have their own section, and then we would rotate so they'd all get to use different sections. We would have childcare, so the Mahtomedi Adventure Club or our MAC program would take place in the afternoon from 2:15 to 5:30. Our hybrid model would be the same at OHA as it is here at Wildwood. Again, the hybrid model is designed to have some in-person learning and some distant learning component. Our school day would start at 7:45 and go until 1:15. Our weekly schedule would have 5 days of continuous learning. All elementary students would be present in our school for 4 of those days. And then on one day, it would be distance learning. But they would still be receiving live teaching online from their teacher in the classroom if we can manage that. So our school classroom and capacity would be 80%, and our homeroom students would be in person, and that would be 20% of the classroom would be distance learning, with scheduled online face-to-face instruction and recorded lessons to provide flexibility so your child would receive a live lesson at a certain time during the day. If that time doesn't work with your family, or if we can't make it work here, then there would be a recorded lesson that you would be able to watch the mini lesson, so those lessons would continue throughout the day. At Wildwood, we are working on a schedule for specialists where we would be able to teach digitally here at school, and possibly maybe even get them into the classroom, and then that learning would continue during the distance learning time for families. Wildwood students are using that Seesaw platform for technology. All right, distance learning model 2.0. As I discussed earlier, it would look different than it did in the spring. Our school day would start around 8 a.m. and go to 1:30. We would have 5 days of continuous learning. All elementary students would participate in distance learning Monday through Friday. And again, we would use that Seesaw platform here at Wildwood. And we would incorporate online daily instruction, a regular schedule, face-to-face lessons, and also recorded lessons to provide flexibility for families. We also know the families want feedback about how their students were progressing, and we would provide that feedback to families on an individual basis. All right, class sizes. So in person, we would have between 20 and 24 students in person, just like a regular school year. Excuse me. The hybrid model, we would have 80%, which would be here, it's between about 15 to 18 students in a classroom, and then we would have about 4 or 5 students doing distance learning on certain days during the week. And then distance learning, again, we would go back to that between 20 and 24 students in a class size, because we would be able to have 100% of our classes doing distance learning. All right, the schedule will look different depending on what model we use. For in-person, it will look very similar to our normal school day, except our start and end times will be earlier. For hybrid, we would have a modified schedule for students where we'd have mini lessons starting with a morning meeting, literacy, math, social studies, science, possibly specials, lunch, recess. We would make sure that we would have a lot of outside movement breaks. We want to use our outside spaces a lot. Get those hybrids or get those cohorts out into outside. In the distance learning model, we would have flexible school days, Monday through Friday, and possibly live Google Meets for morning meetings and lessons. We would have synchronous and taped lessons for flexibility, and the possible schedule would run continuously, and we would give the schedule out for parents so that they would know exactly what's going on in the classroom, and be able to join that classroom, especially if that was on their distance learning day. All right, regardless of what model we are in, we want to ensure that we have common K-12 instructional expectations for our students. We want to prioritize those standards, and that will be our focus to ensure that our teachers are providing engaging instruction. We want to use modeling and provide feedback to our students and parents. We also want to provide opportunities to practice with feedback live with the teacher, and we want to incorporate ongoing assessments so that we can monitor the growth of our students. We want differentiated instruction that meets the needs of our learning. We want to make sure that it continues. Our teachers will provide small group instruction for special education, students in EL, students in math and reading interventions. Childcare, depending on what model we use, again, in person, our childcare hours will be 2:15 to 5:30. Hybrid model, we will not have childcare in the morning because of the early start time, but we will provide extra childcare in the afternoon from 1:15 to 5:30 on distance learning days for every child and for essential workers. If we are in a distance learning 2.0 childcare model, we will provide for those essential workers. All right. Pivoting. So moving between in-person, hybrid, and distance learning, the word pivot has kind of become a staple in our COVID-19 vocabulary. If we have to move between the scenarios, we want to ensure that we can do that seamlessly and make sure that we have the resources to do it. We want to ensure that we can also continue the learning. If we do have to move from hybrid to distance learning, or hybrid to in-person, or in-person to hybrid, or whatever combination it is, we want to make sure that we are continuing that learning. All right, so here are some questions. What are the COVID-19 symptoms? How will students be screened? What will their exclusion practice at Mahtomedi Public Schools be like? Symptoms are, you can read it here on the slide: new onset cough, shortness of breath by themselves, or at least 2 of the following: fever. Families and staff will be educated on COVID-19 symptoms so that they can look out for those, and instructed on self-screen or screen their student prior to coming to school. If we would have a situation that would arrive, we would receive notification about COVID-19 case in our school. We will look to MDH for the notification process and the guidelines, and they will recommend a course of action. So, like I said, we do have a room over here where we would quarantine the student. If they do have symptoms, we would ask that parents pick them up, and then we would follow MDH guidelines on where to go from there. Mask. All mask, obviously, it's a state mandate to wear masks, so staff and student will be required to wear masks. Again, I encourage you to start talking to your child about wearing masks, start practicing wearing masks, maybe wear it for 15 minutes and then take it off, and then maybe scaffold it up to 20, 25 minutes. We will teach, we will remodel, we will be modeling and modeling and modeling. We'll talk about the importance of masks. School-specific face covering requirements are outlined in the Minnesota Department of Health and the Planning Guide for Schools, pages 6 through 8. So if you want to look at that, if you want to look at possibly what's appropriate mask, what is not appropriate mask, like this is my mask here, and so they have all that outlined in there. We are probably going to order lanyards for students so that they can hang their mask down so they don't lose it, so they're not dropping it on the floor or losing it. We're probably going to order some lanyards. All right, school day. Why is the adjustment of school start and end time necessary for the 2021 school year? A couple of big reasons. The first one is because we have to have cohorts. If we had early childcare, that means that we would have to keep a small group of students in cohorts, and we'd have to use our classrooms for that. We couldn't have them all in the cafeteria like we normally do during a normal school year. Because we're using classrooms, those classrooms have to be cleaned after they're occupied. And so in order for have those kids in that classroom and then have all of those classrooms cleaned, and it could be considerable, you know, for MAC, it could be 7 or 8 classrooms. We don't have the capacity to do that. We only have one custodial person on during the day. And so we would be spending a lot of time cleaning. And so to eliminate that, if we started earlier, then our kiddos can get right in, and we'll have extra staff in the afternoon that can clean. They'll clean it up. They'll be walking into a fresh and clean and sanitized classroom right away. Also, we wanted to eliminate that time for families so that they can drop off and that they can go right to work. They don't have to wait. They don't have to find childcare in the morning. They can just drop off and they can go right to work. So I'm just going to read this. The school start and end time change is important because it eliminates extensive cleaning from our morning childcare program, which I talked about, that would impact instruction and regular start time. Provide support for our families who work outside the home. I talked about that, and we'll need to return to in-person work. We know from surveys that 60% of our Wildwood families intend to do so. They'll intend to go back to work in the fall, and we want to allow them to drop off students. We also know that bus capacity is going to be reduced to 50%, and so at this time, adjustment allows us to maximize the number of days that we can have at our elementary school students in person and provide valuable staff preparation time. We have made the school start and end times across the hybrid and in-person models to allow for better transition if the model switches. This is not a forever thing. It is just situational because of the pandemic that we're in. Elementary childcare. What childcare will be available at elementary schools during the 2021 school year? Yes, MAC absolutely will be offered. In the afternoon childcare, under the in-person, the hybrid models, and then under the hybrid model would be offered from 1:15 to 5:30 p.m. And in the in-person, it would be from 2:15 to 5:30. And in the distance learning, it would be for essential workers. Aligning siblings. My children are at different schools. It's possible to align their distance learning day. Is it possible to align their distance learning days? Yes, I'm in this situation myself with my own family. Absolutely. On the enrollment form, we're going to be sending home an enrollment form soon. Families will be asked if they prefer their children to have their distant learning days aligned. And we're going to do our best to make sure that we align those families so that you don't have different children home on different days of the week. Unfortunately, we're not able to honor the friend request, but we will communicate your distance learning days as soon as possible. How will accelerated support service for math and reading be delivered under different models? Yep, at Wildwood, we'll use small group instruction inside our classroom. Our teachers are always looking for that. We always look for appropriate challenges and support for all students and their individual needs. Will after-school activities and athletics take place during the 2021 school year? Yes, the Minnesota High School League is planning fall activities to begin on August 17th, but will announce any adjustments to their schedule. Registration for Mahtomedi High School activities is currently scheduled to open today on August 4th. So, community education is planning on providing middle school enrichment, and community education is planning on providing youth enrichment offerings starting in September. And for more details, you can check out their website. Will school supply list change? Yes, it will. We have to have individual school supplies for students so that they're not sharing school supplies. And so we actually had our supply list up and we took it off of our website. And teachers are now working on adjusting exactly what they're going to need for school supplies. So that'll be coming out very, very soon. But yes, it has changed. Will families be able to switch between in-person, hybrid, and distance learning? Yes. If you feel like you started or you feel uncomfortable, say with the in-person learning under the in-person or hybrid models, families can always request a distance learning plan. We will communicate with families in the future about the time periods of when you can do that and when you may make that request. And then students who need quarantine also would be on a distance learning plan. So yes, you will be able to switch if the plan that you chose originally is not working out for your family, and our district will provide a timeline for you so that you know when you can do that. All right, what will be the process for device for all learners? Yep, K through 5, we will have iPads here at Wildwood. And they'll be assigned devices and they'll be allowed to take those devices home. We want the devices to stay here during the days. If we do distance learning, they would be able to take them home. If we do hybrid or in person, we want them to stay here as much as possible. However, we understand that some families do need their iPad to come back and forth. That's totally fine. On the day, if we did hybrid, that you were home, so the 4 days you're at school, you would leave your iPad here. The 1 day you are at home, then you would take that iPad home and then bring it back the next day. Here's some more additional resources on these links here for a school-wide plan. Here's my contact information right here. You can email me or call me with any comments or questions. I'd be happy to help you out as much as I can. All right, and that's it. So thank you for your continued partnership to support our Mahtomedi schools. I know this hasn't been an easy time for families and students. We're struggling with our own family on what decision to make, and I know it's a big one. I understand that every single family is in a different situation, but again, you do have the flexibility to choose distant learning regardless of the district's scenario choice, if that works out for your family. Please let me know again if you have any questions. And also, updates will be coming from the district as we get more information. Thanks, and have a great rest of your summer.